In this video, I wanted to talk about creativity and my experience as a designer. The do's and don'ts of design. Do understand your audience and understand the perspective they're coming from. How are they functioning in the space or the place that they're seeing your design? What is the purpose and what is the intention of what you want to communicate? Don't forget to consistently improve on your process. Having a structure and a system in how you're going to manage expectations is going to be your number one way of keeping your clients happy as well as the project to flow. I was definitely very curious and always looking at my environment for resources as I was growing up. So solving for problems came pretty naturally. I had to find ways in order to find a solution for even small things. I think was a bit of a muscle that ended up getting built in order for me to stay curious and to find solutions. I was also exposed to a lot of different disciplines. I played instruments. I played a violin for about 9 years. I learned Suzuki method. I played a lot of different sports and also took a lot of different art classes because I had an interest in it. If I think about it, I think for me, I knew early on that some kind of creative path was going to be what I was going to end up doing because it was what I was most interested in. It's what I was constantly looking to improve on and continue to do. And a very important part of continuing to stay inspired in creativity is to stay very open-minded and to also be exposed to a lot of different things. I went to a visual arts high school, so not like a typical high school. I had some liberal arts at my home school, but also was painting and entering competitions all throughout high school. And someone who had graduated the program had come to our school and told the story about how she has become a fashion designer and she was making clothing on her own and that entire experience. And I found it so inspiring that you can take a skill set that is actually helping you in your survival in a sense. That's how I really took that information, something that you can create that's going to help you in terms of functionality or life. So I felt that that was a very powerful tool. And that is something that fueled a bit of figuring out what it is that I wanted to apply my creativity and my skill set to. So I did go to design school and I did learn the base skill sets in order to apply to different industries or different positions in the design world. But what I did differently was I stayed very open to different opportunities and different parts of design in the design industry in order to gain experience, to have more of an overall impact than just focusing on one particular major or one particular skill set. Starting off purely based on curiosity, I got as many internships as I could, starting my sophomore year. Whenever there was an opportunity, I took it and I tried it. I wanted to understand what was great and what was not so great, or perhaps different than my perception of these different roles and all of these different responsibilities. What was so valuable about gaining experience in that way and staying curious was that I learned so much more quickly about not just the skill set that you need to learn and understand because you will constantly improve and continue to grow, but it was also about the dynamics of what the environment is like. And that became very important to me in being a part of a bigger vision or something that was helping find a solution in some way. I did learn all of my technical and production expertise from being at large corporate companies, but that skill set ultimately became the foundation of how I was going to solve for or think about the design process in a bigger picture and even having an impact on experiences. And in the beauty industry, a big part of my experience was learning about production, design, graphic design, packaging design, product design. So it was a smaller tactile experience that I was learning. But what I eventually became very curious about was how I was going to have an impact on more than just a small tactile experience. How do I catch the attention? How do I communicate overall in a larger environment? So not just the product, not just the display, but the store, the entire store, the space that this product is living in. That's when interior design and my curiosity around how I can impact and have an effect on an experience by creating a certain kind of space, ambiance having an effect on being sensitive to sensory and what is going to really portray and present an emotion or evoke an experience that I wanted to create. So I went out and got my first client. So I started off in residential interiors and eventually had an amazing opportunity to work on a lot of different commercial interiors, and also have had the opportunity to work with really incredible brands that really helped me express all the different aspects of problem solving through design in my work. In design, something that I've learned has been really valuable in what I offer and the skill sets I have is that value engineering what is absolutely important and absolutely not necessary is a large part of how I think about design. And for designers out there, we all know that form follows function. But more so than that, there are areas and places where you have to be really practical. I've had a lot of different clients, especially for interiors and commercial spaces. It's always the same problem. There's no money, no time, but we need to make it look incredible and have it be a masterpiece. In that experience of working with clients with that same problem pretty much, I've learned that a tactile experience or really looking at the function is what is going to help you determine what areas are going to be necessary for you to spend or splurge on and what areas you can save on. I think it's noticeable when there's good design, and it's very noticeable when it's great design in the sense that you won't notice it. Great design is very invisible. If you don't find a pain point or some kind of tension in an experience, even a small action such as turning on a faucet, even a small action of feeling the texture of a surface or opening a doorknob, or any kind of small experience like that that feels seamless is really great design. There's moments that you're gonna find where you are somewhere or trying to figure out how a hand dryer works or how something is attached or detached to a certain piece. Good design feels smooth. You're not going to feel it. You're not going to feel resistance or pain in interacting with it. And I think it's really important to remember, in order to not only recognize but be a great designer, is to be very thoughtful. Being able to have the experience of a lot of different industries and what I've designed for or who I've been able to have as a client and solve for in production, it's really given me a lot broader and expansive view on how you can solve for things and how you can create a certain experience by understanding the ultimate outcome. Because I understand production, it's easier for me to understand what details are going to evoke a certain experience or emotion in coming in touch with that. What's so great about having a lot of different experiences and experimenting with a lot of different ways and how you can solve for whatever design problem you're solving for is that it gives you a wider breadth of perspective. You're capable of being more thoughtful if you have the perspective of what you're trying to solve for from very different perspectives. So an example would be, I've worked on different products and brands from like mass consumer brands, meaning lower price point, all the way up to very premium luxury brands. And you're actually solving for very different things in those instances. Another really important thing for creatives is, regardless of how you feel the outcome of a certain project was, archive your work. You never know when it's going to become useful or something that you're going to reference. So archive your work and save it. Save it, and remember that your emotional attachment to it is not what should determine whether you think that you should save your work or not. Just save it. You never know when it's going to become useful. The broad range of work and experience that I have has really been incredible in the sense that design is a method of problem solving for me. The way that I view environments, objects, things is really from multiple perspectives, which also ultimately helps you in life to be more open and to understand that there are many different perspectives that exist aside from just your own and your experience. Design for me is really my way of communication and what I've been trained in. That's ultimately the format of how I problem solve. Design is just problem solving. For me, it's my language and how I communicate and express to the world, but your method may be a different medium. Design is really about thoughtfulness and being able to see perspective. I really think experience is very important in participation of going and trying different ways that you can learn a skill set. Even if you don't realize that it's completely conscious, the more experience you're going to gain in learning different mediums, reading, listening, learning as much as you can, it's going to help you in the long run in how you problem solve. Especially as a designer, nothing you're creating is really brand new. You're combining different ideas and bringing it together to be this new thing, but the new thing is not really new because it's always reference from something else that you've seen that you're just combining together in a new way. If I were to give advice to someone interested in design, I would say, let go of your ego, especially if you have a client or a project that you're working on and you have a very specific vision. The reality is there's always going to be a budget. Don't think about only and one isolated way of solving a problem. In order to be a great designer, being agile, being able to communicate what it is and how you're solving for something is going to get you a lot further. The do's and don'ts of design. Do engage in different mediums of how you're going to create. Learn different software, go and take a pottery class, take a painting class, do something outside of what you are trained to do for your job. This is also going to help you have another method of problem solving. Don't be afraid to be different. That sounds so basic and something that you might see in like a weird picture little album printed somewhere. But what I really mean by that is if you can express your creativity in a different or new way, in a different format or in a different medium, that's where the best ideas are going to be born. Sure, apply the technical skills you have learned, but understand that exploring different ways and experimenting with how you're going to solve for it is going to be where innovation comes in. Don't complicate things. Understand what your intention is and what you're trying to solve for in your design, and come up with as many different ways that you can solve for that. Try even 100 different iterations. That was something that I practiced when I was in school. Before we even start the first draft, to put at least 100 different iterations of how you could solve for it on paper was a method of looking at all possibilities. Design as my method of problem solving has really enhanced my life because I can pay attention and notice the way that I want to curate my environment and life to be ultimately exactly the way I want it to be. If you find this content valuable, please like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you in the next episode.